I grew up on a dairy farm in southern Minnesota, and my parents and grandparents and sister were all very into music, and so different styles of music and music in the barn for the cows and radio and everything. So just growing up in the prairie had influence on my music, I think, and love the city, and I love the outdoors too.
And you played the guitar and piano, and the first thing that you composed was a rock opera?
Oh, yeah, I'm old enough. I was born in 1959, so when I was a kid, I listened to a lot of classical, a lot of jazz, rock, played a lot of rock guitar, and then, of course, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Jesus Christ Superstar was out in the hot item for musicals, so I sort of did a little mini rock opera. You know how it goes when anybody who's studied an instrument, there's down times you're practicing which the music you should play, and then you sort of improvise or fiddle around. So that's sort of how I got into composing. So when I did piano lessons, I had a wonderful piano teacher, Audrey Wolfe, who let me, study jazz and write little piano sonatas and just sort of explore what the creative aspect was in addition to, studying classics.
And since then, you've gone on to win an Emmy for your compositions, and you've composed over 150 works. That's amazing, and a whole bunch of different genres.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I can't overemphasize the invaluable element of having wonderful music teachers that have been supportive and guided a person, and then, just a lot of opportunities where people will take a chance on someone who isn't known. At some point, all composers haven't had a premiere. So there have been very many generous people to my career and believed in the music I was writing, and of which one person is Joseph Junta, a brilliant conductor here with the excellent Des Moines Symphony, and has been very supportive of the music I've written in the orchestral aspect.
So in addition to orchestral music, you've done choral, chamber music, and ballet music, and you like to get into the natural world. Tell us a little bit about that.
I really feel, and I think most people agree with this, that music really comes from nature. There's really no division between what is nature and what is human existence. And many composers in all genres have gotten inspiration or received inspiration from the wild, from bird sounds with Messiaen, to John Luther Adams with his Become Desert, Become Ocean, just to mention two. Spiegy with the Nightingale and the Pines of Rome. So we define it, humans, as music, and I think it is that for the wild as well, but it's just an incredible thing. I mean, I could never write a melody as beautiful as a humpback whale song. I mean, it's a fascinating thing, and also I'm interested in the nature connection because it also connects us to the wider music, the more cosmic music that we share as interspecies.
So how did you meet Maestro Junta? How did you
Yes.
two become acquainted?
I had written a piece based on a very popular children's book by Deborah Fraser, On the Day You Were Born. I was commissioned by the Minnesota Commissioning Club in Minneapolis to set that for narrator and orchestra for a young people's concert with the Minnesota Orchestra. And then Joe programmed that piece here with a family concert with the Des Moines Symphony, and Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood actually narrated the concert. And then after that, then Joe programmed Blue Liberty, which I had written as sort of like a holiday fanfare 4th of July piece. And then my Symphony to the Prairie Farm was commissioned after that.
And how did you get involved with this symphony and sculpture?
Maestro Junta contacted me that they wanted a piece honoring the new sculpture garden that John and Mary Papajohn had so generously contributed to Des Moines. So that's how it started. Jeff Fleming at the Des Moines Arts Center and Maestro Junta and the Papajohns talked with me about it, and we didn't select all of the sculptures. So we just, started out with a select number. And all of these projects with the symphony and sculptures have just been fabulous for me. It's been really fun. I've learned a lot, and I love sculpture. I just really connect with sculpture, and this has been really exciting. I was actually very grateful I was able to meet Olafur Eliasson, the Panoramic Awareness Pavilion sculptor for the 2015 Symphony and Sculpture 2 when I was here, so that was very exciting.
So how did you translate the sculpture into music? How did you decide to do that?
The fascinating thing with music is if, you had 5 different composers and they all were, doing a piece to Nomad, you would have 5 utterly unique pieces, which is what is very exciting and intriguing about music and composition to me, and a real reason why in the culture we need the arts even more so, because individual voices are represented and people are able to express themselves, and then everyone honors that and you get the different perspectives and have a deeper understanding, hopefully, of our whole reason why we're here on the planet. But aside from that, I usually, with my composition, I do a lot of research, and then sometimes you have to put the research aside and just sort of go with vibes, improvisation for me. And then I also work with color. And then with the sculptures, I feel they have a vibe or a particular statement. For some of the sculptures, it's a little bit more obvious and more programmatic, perhaps. So you can make a statement that way. Others are more abstract, and then maybe the shape of the sculpture would determine the shape of the score or the direction of the line in the orchestration, or the mass intensity of the sculpture might determine if you're going for a large sound. If something's going to be more elegiac, then, for instance, like the post-Balzac struck me as being more of a reflective piece. Nomad definitely needs to be a global feel to it, rhythmically, sonically, spiritually, if that gives you somewhat of an idea, without being specific.
With Symphony in Sculpture 1 and 2, then, how many movements or sculptures did you translate into sound?
I think in Symphony 1 we did 9. In Symphony Sculpture 2 there were 6. And then for Symphony Sculpture 3, the emphasis for the 10th anniversary of the Sculpture Park was to concentrate just on the 3 newest sculptures, the Kusama Yayoi and the Ai Weiwei, and then the Robert Indiana Love.
So tell us about this Symphony in Sculpture number 3 for orchestra and youth choir.
Well, I guess with all the symphony and sculptures, each of the sculptures have a different mood, but not only a mood, but I'd say more of a radical orchestration difference. The first movement, the Iron Tree Trunk by Ai Weiwei, is very heavy, very intense. I was playing off of his struggle for human rights through his art. And then also the percussionists are playing ginkgo tree branches and sunflower seed rattles, a lot of iron sounds to play off the massiveness of the tree. The ginkgo tree branches are because in the province in China where he is from, there's a tradition of honoring trees and landscape, and there are cedar, ginkgo, and I think camphor trees in that area. And there's sort of a juxtaposed between an intense industrial sound, because with his statement with the iron tree trunk, it's a statement about industrialization versus nature. So we have a lot of intensity, sort of a political struggle, and then there's a repose in the high strings, and then also a similar repose at the very end of the movement with a low bass of strings, and then the solo cello is in sort of a chant or a cry that ends very high with glisses and things, and that's in honor of the souls of trees and birds is what's written in the score. So it's kind of like the struggle for human rights that Ai Weiwei is always working for so eloquently through his work for refugee rights and everything. And then we close with the individual freedom aspect, because he was in prison or detained in China too. So there's a couple spots where there's very repetitious, I think there's 9 repeated chords, sort of like playing off of Beethoven in Eroica, the repeated chord. And I did that here in this movement in tribute to him for what he's gone through with his detainment. So at the very end of the piece, the cello has a solo line that goes very high with a lot of gliss and sort of bird-like sounds in tribute to the souls of trees and birds, and also expressing human freedom that Ai Weiwei works so diligently and brilliantly for in his art.
So tell us about the second movement.
Second movement is just supposed to be pure fun. The Pumpkins by Kusama Yayoi are very playful, magical fantasy pieces. She has a lot of them that are bright yellow, and she comes out of the pop art world of the 60s, being a contemporary with Yoko Ono. And because it's a pumpkin and there's polka dots on it, when I got the commission from Joe and we talked right away, I said, I definitely have to do a polka. So what we have is a craft beer polka, or it could also be a pumpkin spice latte polka, however you want to do it. So it's just a straight ahead polka. And in the program notes, I talked about Johann Strauss Jr. They wrote thousands of polkas. And there's a champagne polka in which I've seen it performed with orchestras, in which someone comes out with a champagne bottle and then the conductor does a toast. And then the percussionists, they've got it set up so that you can make a cork sound when a cork wine or champagne bottle is being opened within the piece. So with that in mind, I wanted to do an update and did a craft beer polka so that their percussionists actually playing crowlers and growlers, beer bottles, and then stainless steel coffee commuter mugs. So if you want to merge the pumpkin spice latte or the craft beer polka notion with the tradition in classical music, that's what's happening in that. So there's one surprise in the polka. So it'll be a toast to the 10th anniversary of the Papa John Sculpture Park and to the Des Moines arts community and the audience and things. So it should be fun. And then third movement, that movement, since the imagery is from 1965, that Robert Indiana first did the Christmas card for the Museum of Modern Art, and then he did the sculpture of love in 1970. I thought I should just try and go for a retro 70s sound. So it's in three sections, sort of starts out with love pop, I mentioned in the score. So my influences there would be Donovan, Mellow Yellow, Sunshine Superman, and then I'm a big David Bowie fan, so his Kooks and Oh You Pretty Things. So again, with that, percussionists are playing Coke bottles, and it's kind of boppy and peppy. And then the middle section is Love Free, and there I go for more of a electric guitar, Magnus chord organ, 70s guitar groove, more like, again, Bowie's Memory of a Free Festival or Mark Bolan style, Cosmic Dancer. And then the last section is Love More, and at that point the youth choir will be singing, and that's more of a pop, more Broadway ballad type of feel. And they sing the phrase Love More, which is from Megan Rapinoe's quote from this summer about that we need to love more and hate less.
And that's the Heartland Youth Choir that's going to be appearing.
Yes, and they are wonderful. I heard them last night at rehearsal. So Sandy Miller is the director, and the singers there were just excellent. So I'm very pleased to have them involved.
And this is going to be a world premiere, so that's pretty exciting.
I always like world premieres, even if I'm not the one who has a piece that's been written, because the American Composers Forum has that little spot that all music was once new. And it's true. So you think about all the classics from Beethoven to Stravinsky to Bartok, what have you. At one point, all of these pieces hadn't been publicly sounded sonically. So to be at a world premiere, no matter what genre, you're talking Duke Ellington or Gershwin, or if you're hearing new pieces by Lizzo or whatever, you're there and you're communally hearing that with other people. And it's also a reflection of the times, and I think it's unique.
So is there anything you'd like to add about the Symphony and Sculpture 3?
I'd like to thank the Des Moines Symphony and Maestro Junta for commissioning the piece, and also thanks to Jeff Fleming at the Des Moines Arts Center. And then also my thanks to John Mary Papajohn for their vision for really believing in visual art to change the culture in a positive way. I mean, driving here this morning, there was a group of school kids, even in the cold weather this morning in their jackets, looking at the sculptures. It's a touchstone for Des Moines and for people, and it's really a beautiful thing. With the symphony and sculpture, I hope people feel that I have captured the essence, not so much that they might like my music, that's always nice, but I hope that they feel that I capture the vibe or the essence of the sculptures and they go, oh yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like, that would make sense to me. My main thing is that people are able to go further into the art, devoid of if they remember my name or not. I always want the music to speak to people, and the music's always beyond us and always makes us better humans.